the fact that, that a country like Togo, when the COVID actually started, of course, they wanted to send money to a lot of people because they couldn't really move, they couldn't really have an income. And what happened is immediately they called up and said, how do we do this? And they set up a digital ID system that they rolled out within 6 months. And they also set up a system that was interoperable for mobile companies and banks to actually operate. So all of a sudden, you had a country that in 6 months was actually able to pay out all the people without actually moving physical cash from one side to the other. And it increased financial inclusion tremendously. Now, having this digital ID, having an interoperable system, these are part of building blocks of a stack that we actually call to actually have digital public infrastructure so that new entrants to the market can actually come and offer their products to it. And account aggregators, also another part of it. India even have an e-commerce system that actually, so that SMEs can actually even access and even compete with big sort of, providers of goods and this big e-commerce system. So these are, new innovations coming to the market that I think we all should be looking at. And I think all countries should be actually having. I mean, the Netherlands always had an extremely, not done by the public sector, but done by the private sector, very efficient payment system, would actually allowed a lot of services to be built upon that. Without that, you cannot really give all those services that people really need.
Your Majesty, we have seen this happen in India, and now you're mentioning Togo as well, where we can move from single-digit inclusion to double-digit, triple-digit, almost 100% inclusion in some of these markets. And you can imagine that with all this technology and this rapid shift that is happening in the inclusion space, some of the more vulnerable people, sadly still to say women are in that category. Those who are slightly less illiterate, I would like to say, are also part of that. And then this becomes a bit of a double-edged sword. So what do you think practitioners in the private sector should be thinking about to protect and safeguard these vulnerable groups?
No, absolutely. And we know from all the people that are financially included, and then mostly they are through technology, 1/3 of those people actually need some help to operate it. And from the ones that are excluded, 2/3 say they will actually need some help in operation. So there is a very big effort that needs to be done on education. I mean, digital education, financial education, that's for sure. But also there is a big job to be done by the provider to actually simplify the products and actually make the default choice the right choice to be done. It was very interesting. I mean, I know that we're going to touch upon this issue a little bit later in terms of financial health. I was speaking to a big bank in America, and that they have at least 70 million clients in the United States. And they were, of course, they've been servicing these clients for a long time, but they realized that the lower income side of these clients were not really that well serviced. And when they looked at one thing they actually came up to the conclusion was simplify. Yep. We're just offering too many complicated products that these clients cannot really understand or grasp the sort of more simple notions. And when they actually started doing that, the uptake of these services started sort of going up, and they started realizing that, with just very simple things, people started actually sort of increasing their savings and increasing the use of products and actually increasing their financial, I would say buffers. At the same time, they also had some kind of physical presence. So not everything will be digital, and actually sort of teaming that up with some kind of physical presence is very important. In everything, I think that digital is a very good conduit, but not the only thing. We're talking about sort of servicing women, but servicing farmers. Yep. I was visiting Senegal last year, and it's not only the digital sort of service, but actually teaming it up with suppliers of better seeds that are actually sort of, drought safe, being able to have better access to some fertilizers. So the bank teamed up with an input provider, together with some help of when you should be planting those seeds, what you'll be doing, in terms of rainy season. I mean, these clients, these women farmers, end up having a threefold increase in yields. So it's not always just the digital side. So we have to be extremely creative in teaming up with other type of sort of private sector players, and sometimes with a grant to actually see how do we actually sort of, give more technical assistance. So again, financial education, digital education, having good sort of DPIs, also partnering up with the other players to actually bring these products that really make sense to the people that are really consuming it.
It's really an ecosystem lens that needs to be applied in this space, I guess.
Exactly. But we are seeing, and even in countries like the Netherlands and in the States, even in developed economies, there is a big need not only to actually get them more financially included, but also there's a lot of underbanked people that actually only be served by with just to make some payments, but they're not really served properly. And there is a big turnaround in this field because innovation has allowed us to do this. Not only has allowed to do this because we get there sort of, in a much cheaper way, has given us more information that these people have more and more. Like we've seen, for example, in Kenya, when mobile banking started getting in, you could actually see along the time that we said, poor people do not save. Actually, we could see that poor people are actually having every time more and more liquidity they were actually leaving in their banks. So there is something, and there is a business set, but it's a different business. And that is how we have to look at it. It's not the typical business we used to do that, to sort of, service the top 30 percentile, but we have to look at it in a different way. And that's why the biggest challenge is, I think, from the private sector, is to look how does these other type of clients, what are their needs? What are the underlying needs? And how we can actually serve them more. And it is going beyond the comfort zone of being a banker you've actually been, all these years, but actually teaming up with agricultural companies, teaming up maybe with a medical insurance company. So it is a lot of, getting out of your comfort zone, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your Majesty, at the risk of adding new terminologies to this conversation, it sounds a lot like what we should be focusing on in this inclusion space is the resilience of the most vulnerable person. And that requires a significant mind shift in how we design products and making them more fit for purpose as well. So I feel like we should live here thinking more of the resilience of really the most underserved person, I think. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, something that I've actually, it's a new notion, and, there's also discussion about what that notion should be called about when you start something new. And for me, it's very strong, it's called financial health. Some people call it financial well-being. For me, that notion is, we've actually defined it as a, globally, as it is not only helps you to sort of take sort of care of your day-to-day finances, be able to build in the future, sort of, being able to, to invest in something for the future, even, education of the kids, etc. Being able to weather yourself against shocks, this issue of resilience. So it's just one aspect of it.
Exactly.
Resilience is just one aspect of it. And fourth, because we've actually realized that it's a very important issue. It's a whole subjective part, not only the objective, the other three are objective, but the subjective part is, do you have stress in managing your finances? We see that a lot of people, even in their better situations than other households, so some people actually have stress in managing their finances. So these four components, we just define them as financial health. We're actually developing the indicators for that. And that is something we are now starting to work not only with the public sector, sort of in terms of Minister of Finances, but also central banks, but also definitely with the private sector. And looking as, okay, do I give them a lot of services? I give them a lot of credit, like buy now, pay later. Is that making my customer better off? Or I'm actually pushing them into overspending and, over-indebtedness in something they would not be able to pay back, in the future. I mean, a good discussion in the US is overdraft fees. We know that overdrafts are being done mostly by the last 40% or the low-income people in America. So these people actually have much bigger, basically part of their income is spent much more on fees and punitive, fees and interest rates, and you get into spiral effect. So what should we do? Should we actually continue to do this? Because I know that if I'm going to continue to sell this product to them or charge this product to them, this person will never be able to stand up and be able to sell much long terms, like having a mortgage, having things that would really, really give them a sort of, long-term perspective. So I know that is tough, because in the short term, that means that overdraft fees, you're not going to be able to get it. I know of a bank in America that stopped doing it. And that's actually was $4 billion in income.
And what goes into making that decision then? Is it just like one enlightened CEO?
Yes, it was one later CEO, and the OCC is also changing their perspective, with actually having a lot of discussions on this field. And what they realize is by doing that and actually coming up with a better product, all these clients are actually saving a lot more, and they're becoming, potentially in the future, sort of much better clients. So it is a short-term, long-term trade-off. But we're seeing more and more of this issue, and I think it's very exciting. And I think it's something that we should be engaging the private sector a lot more in trying to sort of design the products, or having insight in what are the situation of clients, so we can actually design things that actually make their financial lives better and make them more financially healthy. This is a very big challenge in both the developing and the developed world.